Hi, it's Glenn with War for the West back at you here. I want to dive into this immigration topic with some detail because unfortunately, the conversation that's being had out there doesn't have a lot of detail. So I built a mind map I'm going to take you through in a second here, but I wanted to set the big picture here. I'm looking at the dialogue going on X and it's not going well. I believe it's entirely possible that Trump is being persuaded by RFK Jr., by Musk, and many others that there's a new kind of coalition he can form that is not based on traditional MAGA. They're positioning getting rid of the bad parts of MAGA as the racists, which if you buy into that, like for Trump to for this to even be possible to go on is beyond the imagination. So I don't want to get too worked up about that, but I am completely freaked out about what's going on in this issue right now. And I wanted to talk to you about it in more detail. So just let's take you through some basic facts and figures here. So we have this discussion. It's actually based in like some kind of occurring actual reality in the world instead of the nonsense rhetoric I hear from so many people on quote unquote both sides of this issue. So let's talk about what's really going on, and let's start with the basics. Okay, so how many STEM grads do we have per year? We've got about 775K or so, right? STEM grads per year in this country. 435 of those are undergrad. We've got about a million plus foreign students in the country. It's probably more than that. All these numbers are undercounted typically, because of the way this kind of data is collected. But it's like directionally order of magnitude correct for sure, right? It's about 20 million foreign workers in total in the United States right now. Okay, half of those graduates in STEM, by the way, are foreign. The graduate program's even more, and it's at least 50%. Oftentimes, in many institutions, you actually get into those specific programs, and it's higher. Okay, let's talk about the H-1B program and what it is. So first of all, Biden increased the let me actually make this a little larger even, right? Biden increased the total H-1B admissions to 755K, but you've got to understand they were around 600 and change under Trump. They weren't that much lower in total. They went down drastically in COVID and they're back up. This means right now there's 755,000 H-1Bs floating around. The way H-1B works is changing right now. It used to be that your employer would submit the application for you. Now you're submitting it yourself. They're trying to make H-1Bs independent of the employers, so there's less control and less exploitation. It's interesting. If you look at the focus of this program, it's all about making it better for the Indians who come here. I'm sorry, it's not just Indians and Chinese and everything, but the Indians are well more than half of everybody comes in on H-1B every year. And of these 755K that are outstanding right now, but 70% are held by Indians. So I'm sorry, I shouldn't just say just Indians, but like it's a majority Indians. And it's a lot of, notice we're not hearing this from Chinese people. We're not hearing this from other ethnicities online. We're only hearing this from Indian people. I think a lot of people miss that. Most people, foreigners here on H-1B visas, are not going to whine and complain about who we are. They're very grateful to be here. I think I'm not going to say any more than that. I'm disgusted by the conversation coming towards us. Okay, so you get an H-1B. It's actually good for 3 years, right? And there's 65K of them a year for undergrads and 20K a year for grads. That doesn't sound like that much until you consider there's 755K of them here, right? So you have a very large, like cadre of these people in the workforce. If that was the only thing, it would still be awful. But so it's not some minor amount of people in our workforce. It's just ridiculous to not understand this. And then it's not intended ever as an immigration path. Any H-1B who's complaining and not being able to stay here should be told, what are you talking about? We never gave you an H-1B visa so you could migrate here. We didn't want you to immigrate here. That's why we didn't offer you a regular visa. You could come here, work for a while, and leave, and we'd benefit from that. Good. By the way, one of the things that happens is H-1Bs don't pay into Social Security. So when your company hires these people or the other OPT visas we're going to talk about, they have an immediate lower cost because they don't have to match the FICA spending because they're not eligible to ever collect in Social Security and FICA. Do you understand these structural things that start to come and play with this program? By the way, it's also not supposed to be lower paid. You're supposed to be paid the same rate. And you look at these wage rates for Tesla in in Austin, paying entry-level developers $70K a year, or like all kinds of IT roles, QA, engineers, things like that, 70, 75. I mean, I'm sorry, those jobs are 100K jobs everywhere else. So they're breaking the rules all over the place, and the whole idea is to like they're here then they leave. So there's in theory only 85K open every year, but there's exceptions and all kinds of weird things that go on around it that get people to get some grace granted to them, and there's all kinds of slack and abuse in the process, but it's not much bigger than that. So let's go on to the other visa program that we should be thinking about. And this is the opt visas. I'm sorry, I did something wrong here. Let me fix it because it's going to bug me looking at this. It's an OPT visa. It's an acronym. And essentially, it's there's opt visas are open for 1 year for graduates of U.S. colleges, and then 3 years for STEM graduates. So you get 1 year for any college graduate and 3 years if you're a STEM graduate. Right now, there are about 345,000 opt visas right now, and they're basically recent grads of U.S. universities, both undergrad and graduate. This is used to essentially give the foreign graduate the ability to go out and apply for an entry-level job. This is totally pernicious. This is putting 345,000 people out to compete with engineering and computer science grads, right? Remember, there's only about 150,000 people a year come out of these engineering and computer science programs in general. You've got this many people laying around, right, who are recent graduates over 3 years. That soaks up a lot of the entry-level jobs and the H-1Bs. Now remember, the H-1Bs are also brought in over time, and I can't go into all the background here, but if you've been on X looking about this, you'll see the way that all of the big tech companies are using this to basically using all these techniques and reducing the number of tech workers. It's been very dramatic over the past. American tech workers, excuse me. And it's been very dramatic over the past 2-3 years. There's been 750,000 layoffs in the past 3 years in across engineering and tech. And I talk to people in it. It's very hard to get this data by race, by the way. It's like you can't access it. A lot of people tell me it's a large majority of white male Americans. I have no reason not to believe it because of the overt discrimination that's been discovered throughout this entire process. So let's just go through the rest of what's going on to the young college grad, the young STEM tech guy. I say guy. There's a lot of women going into it now, but there's more men than women in this. So I'm an old man. Please forgive me when I say stuff like that. I'm not trying. I know there's really great women out there in engineering and whatnot. I mean, so like and I've worked with them. That's why I'm not trying to be politically correct. I just do not ever want to breeze by that, right? But it is the majority male-dominated field. And any woman who works in it will tell you that, right? So it's not, we don't have to step on eggshells when we talk about this stuff. So what else is going on? Outsourcing is the norm in many companies for their IT needs today. 300K American jobs are outsourced every year. And you know what kind of jobs are going outsourced? They're accounting and IT and marketing and all kinds of jobs. Development, human resources, digital market. Like, do you understand what's going on? 300K of these jobs are leaving a year. That's direct competition for American workers walking out the door. 66% of U.S. businesses do so. 30 more million jobs are vulnerable to offshoring, to outsourcing right now. It's hard to know how many workers, again, they hide these numbers, right? But the current contract value of outsourcing contracts in the United States is $65 billion. It's hard for me to imagine how many people that is. But put it this way, the numbers I've seen in the past, if there's not 5-6 million minimum outsourced American, like people doing work for American companies, I'd be stunned. Could easily be 10 million or more. But remember, you can't blend in their offshoring because some of these companies have been smart enough to build offshore facilities of their own, right? That may service U.S. clients and then have, complicated kind of operations back to their home country, but they're not strictly outsourced, right? They run them themselves. Not everybody, not a lot of companies do that, but there are some companies doing that. They're also putting big operation centers over in India, and they're building their own like IT and accounting and other financial ops and all kinds of other teams over there. So here's what I just want you to realize. The result of this, excuse me, I'm grabbing the wrong thing here. Silly Glenn. The result of this is that basically white men are being ethnically cleansed from tech. White American men are being ethnically cleansed from tech. And if you look at what's happening, I mean, you have grads this year who can't find jobs, in computer science, engineering grads. The stories are legion. Again, if you're on X or you're watching any of this on social media, there's stories everywhere. People going through this. It's not just anecdotal. There's not just large data like this. There's anecdotal data to support every single thing I'm saying and how tragic this is and what a horrible effect it is. So, what I wanted to do was kind of set the floor for why Americans are at a stopping point, because we realize we're basically losing the tech industry as a career path in this country that's significant. And if it's all going to be filled by, mostly going to be filled by foreign students and foreign people. And now Vivek is telling us it's also first generation. Notice Vivek's comment. He was like foreigners and first generation children of the foreigners. They're better than us as well. I know far too many people in the tech industry. I know many engineers, many great computer scientists, maybe good IT people, developers, whatever you want to call them, data scientists, AI people. I've just known too many Americans who are super hardworking and great at that stuff. So, don't believe them. They're lying to you when they say that. They're lying to you. Americans won't put up with the crap and the practices a lot of these companies engage in now. The working conditions are terrible. The quality of the work, the way they work, it's a very different culture. And yeah, a lot of Americans don't like it and kind of, they kind of maybe get ID'd as having attitude problems and things like that because they're not going to act like slaves. And when you have so many of these foreigners who are desperate for work and captive, they are going to be manipulated and the whole workplace becomes like that. So I'll stop here. I hope this has been helpful. I hope this gives you some sense what's actually going on and why we're so freaking upset. Now, what I didn't go through in this video at all is the catalog of the abuses. If you go to I'm basically War for the West on X, right? It's War for #4 the West. So it's WAR #4 the West. And you'll see I've got so much proof there. I don't want to make this video too long. I wanted to make this like a primer and a simple kind of overview. Okay, hope it was helpful. Thanks. It's Glenn with War for the West out.